Welcome to But Enough About Me, a podcast about other people. My name is Tyler Andrews. I'm a Nashville-based photographer, husband, and father. I'm trying to collect the stories of everyone around me, whether we're best friends or total strangers. I want to know what made you the person you are today. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. My name is Tyler Andrews. I am so pleased that you are here. Guys, this is the 13th episode. And if you don't know what that means, let me fill you in. There are 52 weeks in a year. I publish every other week. That means 26 episodes go out on any given year. And so far, we are 6 months in. This is the halfway point for the first year of this podcast. My long-term record on stick-to-itiveness is not the highest. I'm so excited that we have made it this far and we aren't even warmed up yet. This is so much fun. Right now, this episode, if not this episode, then the next one of these two will push us over the 3,000 download mark. That is insane. It blows my mind. Which brings me to the important part. Our story this week is coming from a friend of mine, a lady that I met several years back when she hired me to photograph her engagement photos. And it was the most fun, casual engagement shoot I think I'd ever had. They said, we want to shoot at the Flying Saucer. It's not every day you get asked to photograph in your favorite bar in Nashville. And what a privilege to be a part of that. Guys, today's guest is a lifelong Tennessean. She is smart and funny and very well-spoken and has practiced being on air in front of a microphone, but you'll hear that. I didn't know exactly what I was going to hear from her because I had never heard her story before. I'm so pleased that we got it on tape, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys. It is my privilege and honor to introduce you to my friend, Jamie Yost. Hi, Jamie.
Hi, Tyler.
Are you still nervous?
A little bit.
Don't be nervous.
I know. It's so weird. I've had some pretty big, professional things happen this week.
Yeah?
And out of all of the things that have happened, this has easily been the thing I've been most nervous about.
Aw.
Well, it's weird because I work in marketing, so I'm always telling someone else's story. Mm-hmm. And so I've never been asked. And so I started thinking about it. I was like, oh, this is weird. I'm a little uncomfortable. I'm usually on the other side of things.
Well, I'll try not to bite.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's okay.
It's really easy.
Yeah.
I just want to know your story.
No, I appreciate you asking my story.
When were you born?
I was born in 1982. It was a good year.
It was a
very good year.
Yeah.
I was born in January, and word on the street has it that my mother was terrified that it was going to snow when I was supposed to be born. And so she had several people on standby with 4x4 trucks because we lived in, well, they still do, in the middle of nowhere.
What state?
I grew up here in Middle Tennessee.
You're
Unicorn.
a native.
I know. I can't say that I'm a Nashville native because I'm not, but I grew up in Robertson County.
Close enough.
It's close enough. I mean, as soon as I got my driver's license, I was in Nashville every single weekend. But grew up in Robertson County. We are about a mile away from the Kentucky border. So I could just literally walk to Kentucky, and that was the joke we used to make.
Wow.
But my husband says, yeah, you drive up 65 North and you turn left at 1874. And that's where I grew up.
That's just mean.
And true, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
Left it at 74.
So the community we grew up in, it's an unincorporated community called Milldale, Tennessee.
Okay.
And that is outside of an actual city called Orlinda, Tennessee. Neither
spell
one.
that?
Or Orlinda,
Uh-huh.
Orlinda.
It really is Orlinda.
Orlinda.
That wasn't an accent.
Nope.
That's just...
A lot of people are like, oh, Orlando. No, Tennessee. Very much in Tennessee. Yes.
Wow. I've never heard of that. Lived here for 20-something years.
It's it's a tiny little map dot, and
Yeah.
it does have a 4-way stop.
Nice.
It has one 4-way
Okay.
stop. Johnny Cash actually did a music video there.
Which one?
I'd have to go back and look. I mean, this was way back.
Oh, so it's one of his, not the
early
American recordings, his original recordings.
Yes. Yeah. So it was back in the 70s, and I've heard that they brought in truckloads of dirt and kind of transformed because the town square still looks like it's from a Western. All the buildings are
yes.
super old, and I mean, it looks great, and it'd be the perfect set for a music video. So,
Wow.
and is it Little White Church? The not the Little Big Town song, but I think it's Shenandoah. We've had a few music videos filmed there just because the old charm is still there.
Yeah.
And it's still kind of got that small town feel. So
it's not too far from Nashville.
It's not. It's not. I remember one time I skipped softball practice to watch Marty Stewart and Travis Tritt film one of their music videos on Highway 52. So grew up very much in the middle of nowhere. We were 3 houses down from the end of the electric line.
Wow.
Yeah. So when the electricity went out, which was often, we were the very last ones to ever get power. So yeah, like I said, 82 born. The closest kind of city, I'm making air quotes, that was near us was Springfield, Tennessee.
Okay.
Which is a little bit bigger. And I was born in a hospital there. And fun fact, that building is now a county jail. So it was a small privately owned hospital, and then it got sold, and now it's a county prison.
Well, it's still useful.
It is, but it's a lot of fun to ride by it and tell people I was born there.
That's awesome. How much later was it?
I was probably I had probably already moved away.
Okay, so it wasn't like
yeah, it was probably 20 years later at least before they completely converted it.
It had served its purpose.
Yeah, I mean,
You were here.
clearly produced some fine citizens. And me.
Siblings? How many siblings?
I've got one older sister.
Okay.
Her name's Marion. She is about 7 years older than I am, which growing up was kind of weird. It's such a big age gap when you're like 6 and 13.
Yeah.
So, which is great because I could look up to her and it was really cool and hang out with all of her friends. But then when she left for college, I was kind of an only child for quite a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, now we're really good friends.
That's cool.
Yeah. Our running joke was always when she was 7 years older, she'd say stuff like, I'm 16 and you can't drive yet. But when she turned 40, I was like, haha, guess the tables have turned a little bit. So.
Tell me about your folks.
Sam and Sharon, they're an interesting duo, let me tell you. Those two, they're not even marching to the beat of their own drum. They're marching to like a one-man band, I think. I don't know. We just celebrated their 50th anniversary.
Wow.
Yeah, so they've been married 50 years. They're kind of adorable. My dad actually went to school for engineering, and he was an engineer for a while. He actually worked on the TVA project.
Nice.
So he was part of that. Hated every single minute of it, and wanted to run the farm. So one thing about the farm I grew up on is my sister and I were actually the 5th generation of our family to live there.
Oh my goodness.
Which is kind of interesting. The house we grew up in was built in 1874 by my ancestors, which was kind of cool. But it was a family farm.
You're not just a native. You're like native.
Yeah.
Wow.
So most of the roads out our way are named for the Pearson family, which was my dad's mom. So there's North Pearson Road, there's South Pearson Road, there's just Pearson Road. So yeah, we've actually got a family cemetery behind our house, and some of the headstones are so weathered you can't really read them anymore, and several of them have fallen down. We do our best to keep it maintained.
Sure.
But yeah, some of them are unmarked, some of them are just carved out rocks in the ground. So it's kind of cool, but yeah, they always grew tobacco, as is the case of most Robertson County farms. Of course, my dad always did that because that's what the family did. But when my dad started farming, he realized he was very cognizant of the fact that tobacco wasn't great, and he didn't want to be a part of it.
Wow.
Which was revolutionary for Robertson County. Even now, they're just starting to grow different crops out there.
I mean, that was revolutionary for but when was that? Because
this would have been probably close to when I was born.
Yeah.
So early 80s. Yep.
So the awareness of tobacco ain't great was still relatively new at that point.
Yes. Especially, we are literally the tobacco capital of Tennessee. It's on our signs when you come to the county.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Cutting tobacco was an excused absence in my high school. Half the school was out and you knew tobacco season was here because everybody would be out and it was excused because it was a family business.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Smoking Barns of Robertson County. So what they do with the tobacco is once they cut it and it's all still a very manual process. It's
Yeah.
the only problem, well, not the only problem with tobacco, but they don't make machines to do
Right.
it for you.
Right.
And so you get it all cut, you put it on the scaffold wagon, you put it in the barn, and you hang it up just stacks and stacks all the way to the roof.
And it dries.
Yeah, and then you set these fires in the bottom of the barn.
Oh.
And you close the doors and you just kind of let that smoke seep into the leaves. And so the smoke comes out of the top of the barns and it smells so good.
I had no idea, but now I need to experience this.
You really should. And they're doing it right now. It's late August, September. If you take a drive out there, it is one of the best smells that you'll ever experience in your life. And just to see that smoke kind of rising up out of these old red tobacco barns, it's just, it's really pretty. It smells great. And just about everybody in Robertson County has a story about someone frantically knocking on their door and yelling that their barn's on fire.
I mean, that's what I would think.
Right.
That's amazing.
So all that being said, tobacco was a very big crop in Robertson County. And my father, when he got back to farming, said, I don't want to do that. And not only did he say, I don't want to raise tobacco, anything he raised, he wanted it to be organic.
Wow.
Which was even more revolutionary. So we're talking
no kidding.
tobacco, which is covered in chemicals, just poured on the tobacco plants. And then my dad's like, not only am I not going to grow tobacco, I'm not going to use any kind of chemicals. So
Wow.
I remember being on the school bus as a kid and hearing one of the kids in the back, like, yeah, that's Sammy Justice. He didn't put any chemicals on his stuff. I don't know what's wrong with him.
Man, so what did he grow?
So when I was growing up, we had a commercial berry farm. So we had strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries. And the way those growing seasons kind of staggered, we basically had some kind of berry from early May through, I remember picking blueberries in October.
That's amazing.
It was kind of crazy.
I'm so super jealous.
It was an interesting upbringing.
Yeah.
Like I said, the strawberries kicked off in May, and we had about a month to really sell those. And then raspberries and blackberries would come in. Blueberries would trickle in after that. Before you know it, I was back in school, and the tobacco barns are smoking. So
did he harvest himself and then take to market, or did you do like the pick your own thing? Or?
we did a little bit of everything. So we definitely did pick your own. Being so far out, we definitely needed to supplement that income a little
Sure.
bit. And my dad was also working another job this whole time.
Oh, okay.
And my mom had a part-time job too. So we were all working like crazy. But we would take orders from Sunshine Grocery and the produce place in Nashville. So we would take orders from them kind of based on what our inventory was. And we'd pick all the berries, sort them, get all the rotten ones out, and then load them up and take them to Nashville. And those trips with either my mom or my dad are kind of what solidified. I was like, I would come with them to Nashville. I'm like, I want to live here. This is where I want to live.
That's awesome.
And it was just enchanting to come in, super sweaty, real gross, just haul these berries in. But then it's like you turn around here. This is Nashville. So
So that's what it was. It was the mystique of the place.
It was just going, you grow up and there's no big buildings around except barns, and you get into this like metropolitan area and there's all these cool people walking down the street and people in suits. You didn't see that in Robertson County. It's like people with suspenders and vests, and it was just interesting. And it was like, this is in my backyard.
Yeah.
And it was almost like you could feel a hum when you got into the city that was not present in Robertson County. And it was just this feeling of these people would accept me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about your mom. You said she had a part-time job.
Oh, yeah. So my mom has always done kind of oddball jobs here and there. She's done Mom's Day Out. She was a secretary for an insurance agency at some point. At one point, she babysit is the wrong word. She looked after an elderly companion and made sure the elderly companion did not just walk out the door.
Sure.
Or burn the house down making divinity, because that was also a real concern.
My understanding is divinity is not easy to make.
It's not. And on one of her bad days, it still was not very easy to make. So lesson learned, don't ask my mom about divinity.
Noted.
But yeah, so she's always had odd jobs, just kind of here and there as the farm dictated. And then she went back to school to be a teacher, taught for a couple years, and then decided she didn't want to do it and said, nope, I'm not going to. So
Good for her.
now they so my dad now drives a truck He is an extreme introvert, and he's always been at home the most on a tractor or on a piece of machinery where he can just kind of be by himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he actually drives a truck for a group of Mennonites in Kentucky because they can't drive the truck, but my dad can. So he drives a large tractor trailer of grain all around the Southeast, delivering grain for Mennonites.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So they're special. We've had everything. I mean, they have literally done just about any kind of agribusiness that you can think of.
Sure.
I grew up, I remember we had rabbits when I was very young. We raised rabbits for a while. We had guineas for a little bit. I remember when I was very young, we had chickens and pigs we had a closed-in back porch, and it was really cold, and we had some baby piglets and some chicks on our back porch. So that was not out of the ordinary to just have a box of animals on the back porch. So they've done that. I raised cows growing up. Now they have bees. They had goats for a while.
Man, they really have done everything.
They really have. They really have. It is not uncommon for me to call my mother and have her say like, "Oh yeah, I'm just waiting on a shipment of nematodes so we can help with our wasp problem."
What?
Yeah, nematodes, if you didn't know, they're this organism. It's a living organism, and it eats wasps to survive. So it's kind of a natural alternative to get rid of wasps.
Like a bacterial germ type thing?
I think so.
Like a fungus?
I didn't get all of the details. I just know that they arrived refrigerated, and my mom had to be there in person for the UPS truck to deliver her nematodes. So nematodes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Google that one later.
Yeah. So anyway, bees, goats, rabbits, cows, chickens, pigs.
And were these things you guys were raising to eat or sell?
Yes. And yes.
So how was that lesson learned?
So it was very interesting. I grew up raising cattle. Every fall, I'd get like 3 cows. Well, that's a lie. I would get usually 2 heifers and a steer or a bull at that. It was a bull at that point.
What every girl wants.
I know. Such a normal childhood. So at some point, my dad's like, okay, well, if you want money, you need to raise something. So I got a couple of calves from a friend of ours who sold calves and bottle fed them every year. So every year I'd get 3 new ones. And I was a little bit young to realize what was happening. I named them.
Uh-huh.
But then again, I was on the farm, and that was kind of a way of life. So it wasn't too jarring to me when it came time to, and I was never part of that process.
So you don't remember there being a Silence of the Lambs kind of screaming, scary moment?
I have been to the processing plant twice.
Yeah.
Mostly it was for deer because we had a lot of deer hunters out our way.
Sure.
Other than that, I refuse. And now I'm a vegetarian. So full circle moment.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So tell me about school in Robertson County.
Oh man, school in Robertson County. So I went to East Robertson.
Okay.
My dad also went there. My sister went there. So my dad and my sister's pictures were on the wall when I went in.
Wow.
Most of my teachers had either had my father or my sister. And they remembered. Also, my grandmother was a very prominent teacher in Orlinda. She was one of the only school teachers because it was such a small school.
Sure.
And apparently she was a stickler. And so the stories of Virginia Justice go back many, many.
That's a strong name.
It is. You didn't cross Virginia Justice from what I've heard. I never met her, but
oh, that's too bad.
So she had a legacy already in the school system. But yeah, East Robertson, it was so small that at first it was K through 12 in the same building. Mm-hmm. So we just had all the grades, and then eventually later on down the line they split it into 2. But understandably so, our FFA program was one of the strongest in the state.
Go figure.
I mean, do what you know.
Right. Yeah.
Super small class. Most of us, went from kindergarten to senior year with each other. Everybody knew everybody. Yeah, and I went to school with a bunch of guys, and they were all very mechanically inclined. So I went to a very industrial school, and I already mentioned, that half of them were missing a lot of class just because they were all on the family farm.
Right.
So I don't want to say the education wasn't great. It was a different kind of education. I went to school with a bunch of people, basically. So we had the very dregs of the county school buses. I mean, the big city schools would get rid of theirs, and we got them.
No.
So our school bus would break down pretty consistently on these back roads. I can't. It's so ridiculous. I remember a few times the roads were flooded because it had been a heavy rain, and we just got our bus broke down a lot. And when that happened, instead of calling somebody or radioing for help, the guys in the back of the bus would just jump out and fix the bus.
That's amazing.
That happened on more than one occasion.
That's so cool.
Which was interesting because it was kind of frustrating for me to see these guys struggle with math so much, because I'm like, well, just give them a carburetor.
Right.
Yeah.
And
they were geniuses around that. So it was a very interesting kind of schooling dynamic. And I think most of the teachers appreciated the fact that they were at a rural school and this is what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And, you get excuses. Like, I've literally was late to school a few times because my cows got out.
Yeah.
And that was just an accepted part of life. So, yeah, super tiny school, big FFA program. We graduated with just under 70 people.
Yeah.
And
70 people. So that's like 3 classrooms.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a short graduation ceremony. So we had that going for us. But yeah, East Robertson Indians. I was a big part of the drama team in high school. I did that quite a bit.
What plays did you
do? We did Nonsense.
Okay.
Let's see, Steel Magnolias.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
I was Weezer. My mother did not want me to say any of the cuss words, and I told her I wouldn't, and then I did. Whoosh. Sorry, Mom. And then we did a couple smaller ones. I think we did one called Drive-In, and then I did a bunch of storytelling, quite a bit, and improv. Did that. I was on the yearbook staff.
Nice.
And the FFA. I still have the jacket. So, so yeah.
Did you ever win anything in the FFA?
You know what? I have a bunch of pins. I don't know that I ever won.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was in the improv public speaking contest, and the girl before me picked organic farming, and I was just like, but I would have been so good at that. I remember that, and I remember the topic I got. I was not as well versed in, but I was just like, man, if I could have gotten the organic one.
That was your moment.
That was so close.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah, school wasn't bad. I wasn't super popular or anything, but I wasn't not popular. I don't know. It wasn't a terrible experience, but I was ready to get out of there when I graduated, for sure.
Romance?
No.
High school romance? Nothing.
Not at all.
No.
No. I had crushes on a couple guys. I was way too shy to ever act on it. So no, I didn't. And the thing is, I had a lot of guy friends.
Yeah.
I just hung out with a bunch of dudes. And so we were always friends, and that was about it. But no, nothing romantic.
Tell me about the music and movies you liked growing up.
Oh, man.
Because Robertson County's a little different from...
Robertson County is very different.
Yeah.
So growing up, a lot, like I said, my sister moved away when I was still at home. So I was basically by myself. And if my mom and dad were gone during the day and I was kind of manning the berry farm, I didn't have anybody to talk to. And so a lot of the times I'd need to be out in the field doing something, picking weeds, checking irrigation or something. So I'd take either a radio or a Walkman with me.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't pick up a lot of stations out there, but there was a little country station out of Bowling Green, Kentucky that I could listen to. So I listened to a lot of 90s country. I have a freakish catalog of 90s country music knowledge, if you ever want to know. So I listened to a lot of 90s country, and then I got the keys to my first car, which was an 87 Buick Skylark.
Excellent.
And I turned the key, and the first song to come on the radio was Tom Petty, You Don't Know How It Feels. And I was like, well, this is a sign. So
this car was meant for me.
This car was meant for me. So I was a big Tom Petty fan. I actually quoted one of his songs in my graduation speech. But that, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, very...
It's pretty diverse.
Yeah. But I still listen to country,
Yeah.
because that's what you did out there. So
I assumed, but I thought
Yeah.
I'd ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a weird question. I'm only asking because I know your age and we're the same age.
Uh-huh.
And I remember my experiences. Do you remember your first experience with the internet?
Vaguely. I remember so my mom was enrolled at Austin P at the time, and there was a snow day, and she took me to campus with her. So I just hung out in the computer lab while she went to classes.
How old were you?
Oh man, I was probably 13, 14.
Okay.
You know, when was the
It's like mid-90s.
I know I wasn't driving. It was probably not 94-ish.
Yeah.
So I remember 96. Anyway, I remember going with her, and I was in the computer lab, and one girl asked me a question like she thought I was a college student, and I felt very grown up. So I was on there, and I found this chat room, and it wasn't anything. It was just like, hey, how are you? I'm blah, 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 blah. I'm in Clarksville, Tennessee. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's people outside of the world. You know, there are people outside of this town that I can talk to all the time. So I think that was one of my first experiences were those chat rooms and feeling like a college student when I was like 14 or whatever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a computer at home?
Eventually.
Yeah.
Eventually. I remember we had one, obviously the big clunky ones, and I don't even remember why we bought it. I remember I just played the one video game it came with. It was like
Minesweeper?
It wasn't Minesweeper. It was some game where you were in a cave and you had to get jewels. Like you were actually mining.
Oh.
It was very rudimentary.
Now I'm going to have to figure that out later.
Yeah, I might have to. I bet my sister would still remember the name, but I don't know why we bought it because my father would never have shelled out that kind of money just for me to play some stupid game.
Right.
But yeah, we eventually had like the computer room, like everybody did, with the chair, and like it was a whole room dedicated to a computer.
That's right. Because what else?
What else are you gonna do? Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I definitely remember my mom typing a few of my papers on her old typewriter.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing up.
She typed for you.
She did, because at that point I didn't know how to type. And so I would write it all out, and she typed it up for me.
That was very kind of her.
It was. It was very nice.
So you graduated in 2000?
2000.
Yes.
Yes. It was a good year for that, too.
It was.
Yeah.
And then what?
So after that, I had visited my sister. My sister went to UT Knoxville.
Okay.
As did all of my family. So my parents went there. My sister went there. At the time, who is now my brother-in-law, but my sister's boyfriend was there. So I had visited them a couple times and just fell in love with the college and didn't even apply anywhere else. That's the only place I wanted to go. So why even bother?
Right.
So I wound up going to UT Knoxville and majored in radio because at the time, like I said, the radio was the only friend I had for a very long time. And it was just this magical world. And these people were talking and like doing these crazy sounds and these crazy contests and all of these things. And I would call into the shows all the time.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with talking to people on the radio. And when I think I was 16, one of the stations in town was looking for a new morning show host. And they were putting a call out to the public. Like, hey, we want somebody local. We don't necessarily want somebody professional. Submit, I think in 25 words or less, why you should be on the radio. On a whim, I did it. And they called me. And so I kind of lied about my age. And I was the morning show host one day on one of the stations in Nashville.
Wow.
And it was really fun. And all of a sudden I was in the studio and I was like, well, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I went to UT Knoxville and majored in radio.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
That's
really
so
cool. It was like my
cool.
dream come true. And the whole time I'm like, do they know you're 16? Do they know you're 16? They're going to kick you out.
What station was it?
It was 102.5,
Okay.
which at that point was the party.
Yes.
So
I
it was a
remember the
pretty
party.
popular station among my peers, which was obviously the most important part. But yeah, no, I got to school later that day and I was like the school celebrity for the day. It was very cool.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that one experience solidified my career choice for the next few years, which I don't know was very smart on my part. But
What else were you going to go on?
I know. I mean, I had to go on something. So
Right.
radio seemed fun. So we'll go with that.
Awesome. So how was school then? Tell me about college.
College, I worked a lot in college, and it wasn't because I actually had a decent scholarship, thankfully, but I wanted my own money, and I just grown up working to get my own cash, and so I worked my way through school in serving, bartending jobs. So yeah, I kind of missed the traditional college party scene. I didn't go to frat parties or anything like that, but I always hung out with the people I worked with.
Sure.
Because you'd get off at 3 a.m. and those are the only people still awake. So, I have very fond memories of college, but not many of them at actual college, if that makes any sense.
How were you as a student?
I was really good.
Yeah.
I was really good. My roommates or my old roommates will tell stories to this day about going out and having a good time the night before And I would make it to class no matter what kind of shape I was in the next morning. They were always like, we don't know how you did it, but somehow you dragged yourself to class and look at there.
Work ethic.
Yeah. I probably reeked of alcohol. My professor probably hated me, but I was there. So yeah, I was actually pretty decent in school, despite all the factors that I stacked against myself. It wasn't, I was just going out and having a good time, but.
Didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, but no, it was fun, and I'm still really good friends with a lot of the people that I worked with.
Tell me about bartending, waiting tables.
So I started waiting tables in Springfield.
Okay.
And I don't know why it seemed like such a, not a glamorous job, but I think the idea of fast cash.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you guys are leaving with pockets of cash every night. I like this. I'm going to try it. So I got my first waitressing job at a restaurant in Springfield.
Okay.
And it was very controversial because at that point, Robertson County did not have liquor by the drink. And there was a movement to get liquor by the drink passed so we could get the big chain restaurants like O'Charlie's and all that. But the restaurant I worked at also wanted to pass liquor by the drink. And most of the county, including my parents, did not want liquor by the drink to be passed. So it was quite the controversy. That was rocking Springfield, Tennessee. But I started working there. Really just I found out that I was pretty good at it. I can talk to people and, I can put on a smiling face for a little bit until I go back in the kitchen and complain.
Sure.
One funny story, it was one of to this day, I can't believe I said this, but a guy comes in and he's clearly not from the South. He was very nice. But he looked at me and he said, "What kind of soda do you guys have?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "What kind of soda do you have?" And I straight looked at him and I said, "Baking." I didn't know that he meant Coke. And he looked at me justifiably so. Like I had 3 heads. And I was like, "Oh, you probably mean soft drinks."
Because down here,
for
people that don't know,
I had never not called it Coke. I just called them Cokes. And then when he asked me what kind of soda I had, I didn't know what that meant.
What kind of Cokes do you have?
Right.
Well, we have Sprite and we have Dr. Pepper.
And Mountain Dew and like all this. And So somewhere I hope that guy's telling that story somewhere right now. I hope he's like, I went down south one time. Not that bright.
I think she was barefoot and pregnant too.
So that was my first waitressing gig. Loved it. Started waitressing again in college. And then I actually worked at, they weren't shady bars, but they weren't not shady bars.
Mm-hmm.
They were very close proximity to a bus station. And so we got some interesting clientele in there. But I just remember we went in for dinner. I'd just gotten back to school, went in for dinner, and I thought, I want to work here. And I applied and started serving. And then pretty soon after that, they threw me behind the bar. And after that, it was all downhill.
Do you make more money behind the bar?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Absolutely. And it was fun. I liked it. I like being places, but I don't like being in a social situation where I don't have something to do. So it worked out for me. I was able to be present at the party, so to speak, but I had something to do, so I could still interact with people, but then I could distract myself.
You could have an excuse to leave.
Yeah, exactly. So it worked out for me. Plus, like I said, cash. Yeah. Every night. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Definitely met some interesting people there.
Such as?
I remember one time we had a drug deal gone wrong, and one guy came in the front door, and he was a regular. He came in the front door. He knew the exit, so he came in, ran through the kitchen, and ran out the back door to the train tracks. And we were all like, that's weird. Why would he? Oh, and then the second guy came in, and he didn't know the way. And so it was a little tense because some of the people were like, no, you can't go after him. And it was very shady.
So which one was selling?
The first guy. Oh, the first guy. And we all knew it. We knew exactly what had happened. He was not the most upstanding businessman in his affairs. And so we knew what was going to happen. And I just ran right through. And then I remember one time 2 guys got in a fight. And they were in my section. And the one guy was getting carried out. He was getting put into the ambulance. And I'm standing there. I'm like, they didn't pay their tab. And so my manager actually knocked on the ambulance door, made them stop, had the guy sign the tab, and then let the ambulance go.
Heck yeah.
So, I did get paid, but so that was kind of the bar I worked in.
That's good. Well, I
Mom,
mean, it's
if
a
you were
college-
listening.
You weren't in the fight,
I wasn't.
and your manager didn't make you go get it signed.
That's true. That's true. I had a great manager.
And you're here now.
Yeah.
So all is well.
Yeah.
So after college, you graduated.
I did.
What was your minor? What were your minors?
My minor was speech communication.
Oh,
So as I like to say, I spent a lot of money learning how to talk.
yes.
That was it. So yeah.
And you talk real good.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I feel like my accent intensifies like the longer I don't know. It creeps in.
That's
So,
normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the older I get, I'm just like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Let
I get that.
my southern flag fly.
Why not?
Yeah.
It's a good place to be from.
I'll agree. I haven't left, so
That's true.
yeah.
So where'd you go when you graduated?
I wanted to get to Nashville as soon as I could.
So you just dropped it and ran.
I did. So I moved back here. We had plans for my roommate, who was just she was a semester behind me.
Okay.
So I moved back here. I lived with my sister for a few months, just to kind of get on my feet. And then my friend Kirsten moved down here and we got an apartment and that was it. So when I first moved down here, I lived in Franklin with Marion for a little bit, but then we got our own apartment and
What was Marion doing?
what was she doing? Oh, she was a stay-at-home mom at that
okay.
point. Yeah, she was doing some sewing projects and stuff on the side, but she was a stay-at-home mom. So it worked out because I got to babysit for her a little bit.
So you were Aunt Jamie.
Yeah, I was Aunt Jamie.
That's awesome.
So yeah, stayed there for a little bit and kind of helped her out, and then moved to Nashville proper. And I felt like I had made it at that point. I was just so happy to be able to say I live in Nashville.
Yeah.
It felt really good. So that was really cool.
What did you get into work-wise?
So I started bartending and serving again.
Okay.
I worked down on Broadway, back when Broadway was not Broadway now.
Yeah.
Started serving there, and I got a postgraduate internship at a radio station,
Which one?
WKDF and WGFX.
KDF, but that would have been...
It was country.
Yeah, I was going to say country KDF.
It was country at that point because this was 2005.
Yeah.
So they had flipped to 99,
Yeah.
which
For those that don't know that story, that rocked Nashville,
it did.
and not in a good way.
I was going to say, and then it didn't rock Nashville
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
I remember it was April 1st, 1999. And I
Yep.
remember I was listening on the way to school because I listened every day to
Yeah.
Big Dave and the Duke.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, well, this seems like a terrible April Fool's joke. And then joke's on me. It's country now.
Yeah. They didn't announce it. It just...
didn't.
They just changed formats.
Yeah.
And everything was different.
Absolutely. Do you know actually on... it was April 1st this year. Jason Isbell actually tweeted about KDF flipping to country.
Did he really?
He did.
That man has a good sense of humor.
He does. He does. And I was like, hold on. I was there. I remember that. And I am still looking for a WKDF Rocks, either license plate frame or a sticker. I feel like one of these days in an estate sale, I'm going to find one of those.
You can probably make you one.
I mean, I'm not going to turn it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
It's copyright infringement. I'm sure I'll get sued, but... All
Kid
right.
Red is going to come hunt you down.
Yeah. So you got an internship at KDF.
Got an internship there and did a lot of driving the promo truck. I handed out a lot of ice cream. We did this one, oh man, I did some dumb stuff. We did this one promotion. It was reset your preset, and we would take the van out and park it somewhere. And then the first person to show up and say, hey, this is my preset on my radio. You get $100. People would just follow you around in the truck because they knew what time you were doing it. So I would just drive around in circles, and these people would drive around with me. And finally I'd stop. Here's your $100. And just...
Let's just quit this.
I'm done. I need to get back. I've got to go. So yeah, did internship there. And then literally right as my internship was ending, their sales assistant was leaving for another gig. And so I just kind of fell into that. And thus began my not very lucrative career in radio.
It was a bad time to get into radio.
I was right on the tail end of the glory days.
Yeah.
And I worked with a great team. I am still very good friends with all of them. But it was very much the end of kind of those wild, crazy, WKRP days.
Yeah.
But we did, I know at one point we did hit number 1. And I remember taking shots of Jack Daniels in the conference room as our program director stood on the conference room table. So all the debauchery was not out the window just yet, but it was being ushered out when I came in. But did some crazy things there too. yeah, it was a fun group. I got to do a lot of voiceover stuff.
Yeah.
Which was exciting. I got to meet a few of the up and coming country celebrities. I met Taylor Swift before Taylor Swift was Taylor Swift.
T Sweezy.
She had just come out with Tim McGraw.
Yeah.
And we were all like, what, you can't even name your song originally? You know, we were like, oh, great, this Taylor Swift girl's coming in. And little did we know
Yeah.
Taylor Swift's going to come in. I told my little niece that, and she was like, you met Taylor Swift. Yeah, but it didn't count.
Yeah. It did too? What are you talking about?
I know.
Those are the kind of times you want to meet celebrities.
It was interesting. And she literally played a few songs on her guitar in our conference room. Same conference room.
Yeah.
Just no Jack Daniels at that point. And so it
Well,
was
she
really cool.
Too young for it at that point anyway.
Oh,
right?
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was curly haired Taylor at that point.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Still,
Sweet Taylor.
still had a MySpace and all that. So
MySpace.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
But yeah, so we had on WGFX, they had a hair metal Friday
Okay.
every Friday, and they would play, 1980 rock music, which
Yeah.
spoke to my soul.
Yes.
And if they could, they try to get somebody in to interview them. And I will not name names again, but one fellow came in, clearly had not been to bed for at least one night, and was very, very drunk. And I just remember we were all in the lobby, just shoving coffee down his throat, we were like, please drink liquid that's not alcohol. Just kind of like slapping him like, we just need to get through this 15-minute segment if we could just stay sober.
This is a rock star? Uh-huh. Oh, come on. You got to name names to that. This is a badge of courage.
I mean, I say rock star, and I'm making air quotes again. Like, even then, it wasn't that big of a deal. It might have been a member of Cinderella.
Okay.
If
Good
that
enough.
helps. Yeah.
That narrows it down to like 5 or 4.
Yeah. And I don't think they'll get mad at this point.
No.
But we were all definitely in the lobby like, is he going to fall? He's going to fall asleep on the board. This is going to happen. This is not good. This is bad. So yeah. And do you know, at one point we did this motorcycle. One of our on-air guys had to ride a motorcycle continuously for so long to raise money for Toys for Tots or something. And I was the only one at the station who owned a motorcycle at the time. And the police showed up at the stunt and said, we're going to allow you to do this, but you have to do it with a helmet on. And so this was the morning show. So at 5 a.m, my phone is ringing and they're asking me, they're like, we have to have a motorcycle helmet. Can you come in and bring us your motorcycle gear so we can complete this stunt? Because the police won't let us ride until we have a helmet.
Children need toys.
Right.
And it's all dependent upon your helmet.
And I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it.
So you're a hero.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like that.
Do you have any stories of complete and utter failure at the radio stations?
Oh, man. Well, there was one time that we accidentally aired a Willie Nelson song, and it was not the edited for radio version.
Oh.
Yeah, we got a lot of phone calls about that. That wasn't good.
Did you get an FCC fine, though?
We didn't.
See?
We
Then
didn't.
It's fine.
We didn't, but it was a nervous couple days around the station. Quiet, very, very quiet.
So how did you... Because I thought, and this is my ignorance, I thought that all of the music that you guys had in there would be like radio singles discs and stuff like that. It wasn't like it was pre-edited compilations of things.
Well, we would get like demo CDs and stuff in the mail. And so if you needed to, you could actually manually load it into the system. And then we manually loaded the wrong one.
Whoops.
Oops. So
Was that your fault?
it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't, but I was working the front desk. And so that was my cross to bear that day.
I am really sorry.
Yeah, and we used to get a lot of crazy people. We had one guy who just came into the front lobby and just started playing a single on like a little handheld boombox. Didn't really say anything, just came in the door and started singing along to the radio.
He was singing along to his own song.
To his own song. Yeah.
And I'm assuming his vocal track was on the recording as well. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, we had a secret buzzer button at the front desk, so like, okay, somebody please come get me. Please help. So you get some interesting people.
That's fantastic. Where was the office?
So it was up on Rutledge Hill, right on 2nd Avenue downtown. And it still is there. It is just broadcast studios now. So when I was there, it was Citadel Broadcasting, which has since been...
it's the building that says KDF on the side.
Yeah. Oh, no. It's not that one.
Oh, it's not.
I'm so sad I never got to work in the Lehman building. Lehman building?
I don't know.
Anyway, it was not that. But a lot of the times we would get people who have clearly walked from that building to ours because they were like, you weren't in the WKDF building. It is very confusing. I will give you that. So we were on the other side.
Okay.
Kind of up by the old Howard School building.
Okay.
So we were on that end. Yeah. It was interesting.
Yeah.
And downtown, like I said, still wasn't downtown at that point. And so even then, we were still on the fringe of kind of the downtown area. So we saw some interesting people.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I know you're married.
Mm-hmm.
When did Travis come into all of this?
Travis came into play at the radio station.
Oh.
Yeah. So he went to recording school and kind of learned all the recording, editing, stuff like that. He came to Nashville completely on a whim. He had 2 or 3 cities picked out, and he picked Nashville.
Where's he from?
Winchester, Indiana.
Okay.
It's a very flat, very cold place.
Yeah.
And he wanted out, understandably. He'd been to Nashville a couple times, really liked it, and so moved down here. So he actually came to work for WGFX, who at that time, was airing all of the Predators games.
Okay.
And the Predators were not nearly as big as they were now, but so we aired every single one of the Preds games, and he knew how to do that. So the first time he came in, I was working the front desk, and I remember my boss at the time had told me, he said, my nephew's coming in a little bit later, and we had this relationship, and he was like, just don't hit on him, please, just joking around, like, he's coming in, I know you're single, just pause off. So this guy comes in, and he's got on this cute little hat, and he looks all cute, and he's got his goatee, and I was like, wow, my boss has a cute nephew. And I did not hit on him or talk to him because I thought he was my boss's nephew. And it turns out it wasn't. It was just Travis. So I needed to get some paper signed, and I walked into his office, and this was a couple weeks later. I walked into my boss's office to get the paper signed, and there is presumably his nephew. And then he introduced me. He said, this is Travis, blah, 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 blah. And that's when I put 2 and 2 together. And this guy is fair game. But I still didn't think that much about it. But apparently Travis said he knew at that point. He was like, I want to date this girl.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was November 1st.
What year?
Oh man. 2007.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it would have been 2007.
Nope,
awesome. That's a lie. I wasn't there yet. It was 2006. Sorry. Yep, that would have been a big lie.
It's not a lie.
Yeah.
It's a mistake.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So yeah, that's where we met. He was board out for the Preds, and I was sales assistant / front desk. And since we worked in the same place, but we worked completely different schedules. He was always working nights. I was there during the day. So I would leave I would make dinner, and then I would bring leftovers and put them in a little container for him and put it in the fridge and put his name on it.
Aww.
And we did little things like we would leave our favorite books for the other one to read in the mailboxes and stuff like that. And
that's really cute.
Yeah, it was kind of adorable.
So at what point did it become romantic?
So he waited 2 or 3 months to ask me out. And I guess he was talking to his friends about me. And finally his friends were like, we're tired of hearing you talk about this girl. Like, we're going to ask her out if you don't, just to get you to shut up. And at that time, I worked the front desk when our normal front desk girl was gone or at lunch. And so he knew I was there from about 12 to 1 every day. And so he called the front desk knowing and well that I had to answer because I'm at the front desk. And I knew who he was, but not really. And he said, would you want to go out? And I was like, I don't know. Yeah, sure. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'll go out, free dinner, a couple drinks. That was all.
Yeah.
And the day came, and it was like a Sunday, and I'd worked all weekend, and I just didn't want to do it, but I did it. And we wound up talking, and it was great. And then it just kind of fell from there. Like, we just started seeing each other. Like, I did not get into it with any romantic intentions at all. I was just like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
You were just taking advantage of him.
I was.
Amazing.
I absolutely was. And then he said, do you want to go to Zany's and see Charlie Murphy? And yeah, that's great. That's a great first date. Comedy, perfect first date. Because you don't really have to talk. You're laughing. Everybody's in a good mood. It's a great first date. And he said, I'll get tickets. And I was like, I think we've got free tickets in the promo closet, actually. So I wound up getting us free tickets through the radio station.
That's a major no-no, isn't it?
It is. I think it is. But I'm like, well, don't pay for them. I can get them for free. It's fine.
They're just right over there.
Yeah, like, I'll just ask Rose. It's fine. We'll get on the list. It's cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and our first date we went, he had it all planned out. We were going to go eat dinner at the old spaghetti factory, which at the time was very classy.
Yes.
And then we were going to go see Charlie Murphy. We had a whole thing planned. So I don't remember. I think it was Dancing with the Stars or some dancing thing was downtown. Old Spaghetti Factory was completely packed. There was no way we were getting in there. And we had already paid to park. I paid to park because his credit card wasn't working. So we're already two down. Like, I'm paying for the tickets. I'm paying for parking. And we're already downtown. And I was like, well, okay, what other restaurants are around? And I said, why don't we go down here to Big River? And he got really quiet, and you could tell it was something weird. And he said, I've had problems with the service there before. Let's go somewhere else. And I said, okay. And we were literally right beside Hooters. So I said, let's go to Hooters.
You went to Hooters on your first date?
We went to Hooters on our first date.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
And he hates it when I tell people that. He's like, I had plans to do something better, but I was like, whatever, went to Hooters. But I found out later that the reason he didn't want to go to the other restaurant was that his ex-girlfriend worked there.
Whoops.
So I found that out much later, and I thought, okay, well, that explains it. So yeah, that was our first date story. Hooters and Charlie Murphy.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
So what happened from there? Where are you at? You're still at the station.
Still at the radio station. He's still at the station. He's also working at Best Buy during the day, so he's working two jobs. So we're just kind of seeing each other where we can.
Yep.
I was also working as a server on the side at Da Vinci's Gourmet Pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's where I had my first date with my wife.
Really?
Yep.
You know what? I feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah, we probably have.
I have a deep-seated love for Da Vinci's.
I miss it. It was the only good pizza in Nashville for a long time.
Really was. It was great. And I was working there on the weekends. So a lot of the times, the only time we would have time to spend together would be Saturday night after we both got off. So we would both still be downtown. I was at Da Vinci's. He was at the station. So we would often meet at the Flying Saucer.
Yes.
Which we also went to on our first date. But it was just kind of one of those cool places. We could talk, cuddle on the couch, or play pool or whatever. So we spent a lot of time there. And then it was getting kind of serious. And I wasn't thinking marriage at all, but a couple of my friends came into town, and I guess when I was in the restroom at one point, he said, I'm going to marry your friend, right? And they were like, okay. And so
I like that.
Yeah. Our engagement story is unorthodox.
Lay it on me.
He also had that planned out. He was going to do it on my birthday, I think, and I think he was actually going to try to take me to the old spaghetti factory. But by that point, I had actually left that radio station and I'd moved over to, not Sinclair. It was 102.5 and 102.9. So back where I all started.
Yep.
And, I'd had a really bad day. Like really one of those where you're just, I don't know why I did this. It was just a real bad day. So I had a couple drinks when I got home and I was talking to him and I was getting really angry. And I said, I'm just so mad. I said, I just want to throw this bottle across the kitchen. And he said, throw it. So I did. And it didn't break. And that made me cry harder because I thought I can't even break a beer bottle. That's where I'm at professionally. I can't break this bottle. So I threw it again and it did break. And then I started crying even harder. And we were cleaning up the broken glass and he looked at me and he goes, marry me. And I didn't believe it. I was like, what? Sobbing just on the floor. It's cleaning up a broken bottle. And he was like, no, marry me. And that's
fantastic.
Yeah. And he mentioned, he's like, I've got my mom's ring at my house. We were at my house at the time. And he said, I've got it. He said, do you want me to go get it? I was like, yes, of course I want you to go get it.
No, I don't want a ring.
I'm supposed to go out in the world tomorrow and say I'm engaged and then not have something to show someone. So yeah, weird beginnings, but
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What are you afraid of?
So my stock answer, superficial fears. Number 1, snakes. Number 2, doctors. Number 3 is a tie between revolving doors and windmills.
So a snake doctor in a revolving door.
It's just no. Flat no for me. Hard no. Not going to happen. I don't like it. And my upbringing, my mom always jokes, I was the most terrified of anyone on the farm of snakes, and I would 9 times out of 10 find the snake.
Yeah.
Which don't just come out and say, hi, I'm a snake. They hide and surprise you. That I just don't like doctors or hospitals or any of that. And then, like I said, revolving doors and windmills. They're kind of the same structure, spinning. I just don't like them at all. Not superficially, I should say. I think my fear is twofold. I think one would be living a life where I don't get to do fun side projects like this. Like, I like that every so often something creative like this will bubble up and someone will ask me to collaborate with them on
Yeah.
that. And I enjoy that. And so I would fear not doing that.
Okay.
Not being a person that someone would ask to help collaborate for. And I do worry about the family farm, honestly. With so much family history there, and just with the development in Nashville, it's starting to encroach on Robertson County, and just all the preservation efforts that my father's put into it all these years. I would hate to see that, sold or developed. My sister's not going to help. That sounds terrible. She just doesn't want to help. Like, she understands that,
Yeah. It's just not her bag.
it's not her thing. She doesn't want to live on a farm. So I do get a little concerned about that. I've never had that wanderlust that people talk about. I've always been very homebound and very focused on where I live and the land and kind of connecting with that. So I think the idea of that not being there anymore is a little scary.
Are you going to move back someday?
I'd love to.
Yeah.
I would. It's just so quiet out there, and at night you hear the bullfrogs and some coyotes, which is kind of haunting, and there's no light, and it's just so dark, and it's a really special place.
Yeah.
And it's just so pretty. So eventually I'd love to live out there. Yeah.
What do you regret?
Regret. Oh man. I regret a lot of things. I honestly regret not paying more attention in college. I regret work. I did work a lot. So
Yeah.
I don't have that typical college experience. And sometimes I'll look back on it and I kind of regret that. And sometimes I regret not traveling as much as I have. It wasn't necessarily a money or time thing. It was just one of those things that wasn't as important to me. So I do kind of regret that. And other than that, the older I get, the more I've just come to be more comfortable in my decisions. And the older I get, the more I just try to focus on what's coming up and can't change the past. So I'm really trying not to regret anything.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I was mean to a kid in 5th grade once, and I do regret that. I really do. I was mean to him, and that was not justified. And I was going through some personal things myself, but that was no excuse. And I really do. Aaron Glazier, if you were listening, I feel very, very bad for that note I put on your locker. So I do. I truly do regret that. Aaron did not deserve that treatment.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much. She's really sorry, Aaron.
I am very sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Who is God?
Who is God? This is a difficult one for me. I grew up in an ultra conservative Church of Christ, church every Sunday night, every Wednesday, super strict Church of Christ upbringing.
Yep.
So from ages 0 to 18, I was that perfect church going girl. Later years, I was really just going to hang out with friends from different high schools. And I wasn't necessarily the picture perfect Christian girl by any means. Then I went to college and kind of just abandoned everything because I finally had some freedom. And so really just got spiritually, I just whatever. Didn't really think about it at all. These days, I think I'm more agnostic, and I feel like there is a governing sense to the universe. I don't necessarily. My problem is I got 18 years of it crammed down my throat in a way that was not palatable to me, and so trying to overcome that and figure out exactly what I believe has been very difficult for me. It's kind of been hard to reconcile the upbringing with a more liberal view on what or who I believe in. Even making it more difficult, my parents are still very active members in the Church of Christ. My sister is actually a children's minister in a Church of Christ in California.
Oh, wow.
So I truly am the black sheep of the family. I'm not even like a black sheep. I'm like a fuchsia wild turkey or something. I don't even know. Like I have gone so far away. So there's religion plays a large part in my family. And I think part of that I've kind of shied away from. So for me, God is, or whatever governs the universe, it's the sun coming up over a smoking barn in Robertson County. It is my dogs licking me. It's hard for me to explain. I'm not super spiritual, but I think God's in the details. I think it's in the little things. But yeah, I think it's just those special moments where you kind of feel at peace with the universe and say, this is my place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think finding that place is your God, whatever that is.
Fair enough.
Just kind of horrible answer to that question, but
No.
it's that's something I actually haven't really talked about a lot, just because religion was such a rocky, tumultuous experience for me when I was growing up, and so now it's almost more personal to me because I was told so long what you need to do and what you need to do and what you need to do, and
Right.
so when I said things like I don't believe in this, or if I question anything, I'd almost get chastised or
Yeah.
told like don't think like that, and so I think just kind of that training has kind of kept me to keep thoughts that might go against the grain close to the vest. So I think spirituality is very personal and very, excuse me, very individual to each person. But yeah, I think there's sometimes it's just when I'm driving and it's at night and I've got the windows down and it's just one of those perfect Tennessee nights and turn the radio off and
Yeah.
I think it's a feeling for me, I guess, now that I talk about it out loud. So
I'm glad we can help you discover.
yeah. I don't know. I feel like I say things like, the universe is teaching me this. The universe is teaching me this. And so I think God is in good humans, animals. So yeah, I think everybody, well, I mean, obviously you wouldn't ask the question if everybody's view was the same, because that'd be a very boring answer for
Right.
your podcast listeners.
Yeah.
But I do still get sucked into old gospel music.
Yeah.
When they're playing like on Sunday mornings, if you put on 650 WSM AM, they've got those old fashioned, they'll sing all 6 verses of Just As I Am.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes me back. I'll listen to all 6 of them. So I do. I'm a sucker for some old gospel music.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was not as nerve wracking as
Like I said, it's a piece of cake.
I know. It's like I said, I'm never on the other side of the microphone. I'm always the one prompting the talent to say, okay, let's do this. I'm in marketing.
And now I'm going to need you to give me a tag on the way out.
Yeah.
Just give me the call letters and our slogan.
103 WKDF rocks. Big Dave and Duke in the morning.
I did look up nematodes, and they're gross, and you shouldn't look them up because they're gross. I did also finally get to see smoking barns in Tennessee. I don't know how I'd missed it all these years, or maybe I just didn't notice it, but if you haven't seen them, if you get a chance, it is super cool. If you enjoy podcasts and want to listen to more, I would suggest checking out Jamie's husband's podcast. Jamie's husband is Travis. He and a gentleman by the name of Nathan have a podcast called Six Pack Double Feature. It is really fun. They watch 2 movies and talk about them, the highs and the lows, and their commentary is always hilarious. It is not PG, definitely for an older crowd, but man, oh man, very, very funny stuff. You guys should check that out. I have to share just a little other piece of super fun information. In addition to this being the 6-month mark of this podcast and nearly the 3,000th download, I also just saw a But Enough About Me podcast sticker out in the wild on a vehicle that did not belong to one of my friends. For the first time ever, I was sitting at a traffic light and they drove right past me, and I freaked out. Guys, it is so much fun that this is out there and you guys are digging it and listening and sharing and talking to other people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you want one of those bumper stickers, they're super cool. 4x4 inches vinyl yellow stickers. They're great. It's our logo and it just says, "But Enough About Me." Give me an email, tyler@butenoughAbout.me, or you can go to any of our social websites. That would be Instagram.com, Facebook.com/ButEnoughAboutMePodcast. The website is www.butenoughAbout.me, and on that site you can see all of the portraits that I made for each of our guests, as well as listen to old episodes and find links to the various different podcast sources where you can listen to the show. You can also find information about Mr. Casey Jones, who does all of our design, and Mr. Jace Hackman, who did the theme song and intro music and outro music. It's all there on the website, www.butenoughAbout.me. If you know of someone that I should be talking to, please drop me a line. I have given out so many business cards trying to get people to let me know that they want to be on the podcast. Folks that I just walk up to in public and say, hey, I'd like to hear your story. Please tell me your story. Listen to this podcast. If you like it, give me a shout. I want to put you on it. The hit rate on that so far is 1 out of maybe 50. So the point of that being, a warm referral, as any good salesman knows, a warm referral makes all the difference. If you, as the listeners, know somebody whose story we should be telling, please get them in touch with us so that we can do that. What else am I forgetting? I don't know. I think that's it. Guys, 6-month mark, 13th episode. This blows my mind. Thank you so much. Go tell everybody. Now, between now and 2 weeks from now, when we publish the next episode, you have an assignment. Go find someone. Whether you know them well or not is irrelevant. Buy them a cup of coffee or a glass of whiskey and ask them to tell you their story. Folks, my name is Tyler Andrews. But enough about me.